Trans Genocide and Violence. I'm going to start off by reading the names of the 32 trans people that have been lost to violence this year. And I just want you to join me in a moment of silence while I read these names, if you don't mind. Samaj Billingsley, AC Morrison, Maya Allen, Dee Dee Ricks, Maddie Hoffman, Aaron Lynch, Candy Reed, Hayden Davis, Maricela Castro, Sherry Bush, Keisha Chanel Geeter, Toy Davis, Martasia Richmond, Kitty Monroe, Charmaine Giselle Marie, Brazil Johnson, Sasha Mason, Chaneliqua Hemingway, Nidra Sequence Morris, Ray Muscat, Fern Feather, Ariana Mitchell, Mia Love Parker, Kenyatta Keisha Webster, Catherine Katie Newhouse, Tatiana LaBelle, Paloma Vasquez, Matthew Angelo Spampanato, Naomi Skinner, Cypress Ramos, Duval Princess, and Amari Lage. We have lost 32 beautiful lives this year that we know of due to trans violence. And these aren't even the lives that we know of that we have lost due to suicide and rejection. So just keep these people in your hearts and remember that our lives matter. And just stand in solidarity with us when we tell you that our lives are at stake. And thank you all for being here. Our next speaker will be Shatriya with her first poem.
Hello and welcome. My name is Shatriya Smith, and I am with the Garvey Tubman Cultural Arts and Research Center here in Springfield, Illinois, which provides safe, supports child-friendly education and free education for low-income families. I am also the aspiring poet laureate of Springfield, Illinois, and surrounding areas. Today, I am here with you because I have a trans child. I believe that every person on this earth, every animal on this earth, every bug on this earth deserves dignity and respect. We need to recognize each other as humans and species that deserve worth and dignity. I am here to share a poem with you, as feisty as I can, that shares my feelings about our situation. I don't have a name for this poem, but I hope you understand with me. I don't get paid enough for this, but I am still learning. That I must evaluate my human oppression in succession by understanding my history of being a Black queer woman in America. Buckle in. This cast iron understanding has a heavy spin. Black queer woman in America could easily be equivalent to overt miscarriage of justice, biased, co-signed, and accepted by the masses, social construct by means of systemic classism. Capitalism is our massa. Who cannot see the crop? Who is in line to be a prophet with abundant, ill-gotten, lied-upon profits? Until the bandage is lifted, there is no weight to stop it. I have been given permission to be all of me by 4 mothers who bore others so the first breath of human decency could breathe. Also, and most notably, when you Stockholms repeatedly told me that he died for me. Then you turned the Bible around and lied to me. You prayed for me while you prayed on me. Pretending that asking coins for prayer is not blasphemy, back off of me. We all get in. There are no other words to spin. Some kids just don't want you to win. So judgment's joke's on you. While breaking your spirit, trying to get in, fit in, forced, faked, moral air conditioning with mental conditioning and mental detentioning, and I absolutely know why. Humans cannot fly. We repeatedly teach them not to try. I am, by your effort and lack thereof, by my nature and my nurture and all of the above, my questioning spirit, my thought-provoking moments, my life, weathered, hold it, or fold it. Just being human, and lucky for you, an added bonus, I am a linguistically embossed, conscious poet. I don't get paid enough for this, but I am still learning. Thank you. Woo! 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 Yeah!
And then to introduce our next speaker, Miss Shay Mitchell.
Hi you guys. My name is Shay, and if you'll give me just a minute, I would really like to share my story with you. I grew up in a small town in Louisiana. And when I say small, I mean like 310 people. There wasn't a word at that time for trans. You're either gay or you're a drag queen, and none of those fit. None of those really fit how I felt, who I was. So as any small town person would do, I went to church 4 days a week. I was the head of my youth group. And my pastor gave a particularly fiery speech about queer people and how they were the scum of the earth. So I talked to my youth pastor and I told him that I was gay because that was the only way that I needed to identify. He told me I was filled with demons and that I was going to burn in hell for eternity unless I did exactly what he and the pastor said. That night they stripped me naked. They put me in a cold metal chair. They hooked electrodes up to my nipples, my scrotum, my penis, and they played gay porn. And if I became excited, they would shock me to the point where I had foam coming out of my mouth. They did this 3 days a week, 3 hours at a time. After 4 months, I couldn't take anymore. I said, if this is what God is, I don't want any of it. I had scars on me today from the burns that they left, and I have to explain that to my sexual partners before they see it. I was almost 17 when my first boyfriend of 6 years passed away. My mother, who was a great lesbian woman, got me into modeling. I moved to New York City and signed with Calvin Klein almost immediately. Modeled with him for 3 years. I was sent to Chicago in 1999 to do a photo shoot. When I got there, the guy that had hired me through my agency tried to rape me. He stabbed me, he beat me, he tore my clothes off with his fingers. My skin was underneath his fingernails. I fought back and he died. I called the police and the police come and arrested me. Took me to jail, and it didn't matter that the guy had been to prison 4 times for rape, and I had never even had a parking ticket. I was another queer person off the street, and they sent me away for 23 years for fighting for my life. I can't begin to tell you the violence and the horror that a trans person experiences in prison. You're ostracized because if people talk to you, then they are also some sort of LGBTQ family. I was raped. I was beaten. I had my cheekbone broken because a guy was interested in me and I didn't want him back. There was always fear of who was going to move in the room with you. Were they going to beat you up when the door locked? Were they going to rape you? Were they going to treat you like a human being? For years, I went through this horror. And then my mom said, when are you going to bloom? When are you going to live? So I started college. I worked all the way through my master's while I was in prison. I started a meditation class. I was ordained in the Buddhist faith. I sat hospice. And this group that I had in the meditation class was the perfect example of what I thought society could be. There was no hate because of your race, your religion, your gender identity. All that anyone cared about was just learning to be, learning to find a ground. That class was full to capacity, and everyone knew that a trans person was teaching it. There was a waiting list to get on, and it was then that I helped found the Inside Outside group that connects people on the outside with people on the inside for emotional and spiritual support. And I wrote my first book. The Petunias are doing amazing. And my editor had it published. And then I started writing my second book, which is themed How the Spirit Soars in Spite of Difficult Circumstances. Even in the pits of hell, I found light. I found a way to be, to exist, to prosper. On July 15th, 2022, this year, I was finally released. But I'd lost my mom. Luckily, I had found a new one. Someone that loves me and cares for me, and she and her husband provided a home for me, because if they hadn't, I wouldn't have been able to leave prison. They gave me love, support, a foundation to be. She fought to help me get my hormones and the things that I needed. She gave me the love that I had lost. Thank you. Being from a small town and going through the things that I've done, I often wonder, why me? Why do I have to go through this shit? Why do I have to be the one that experiences this? I mean, couldn't someone else possibly shoulder the burden? I show my scars. I show my hurt, my pain, the things that I've been through, to try to open up and show people that there was a way. My editor and friend Yaku-san asked me, she says, why? Why do you show your hurt? Why do you show your pain? Why do you expose every single scar that you have so that people can see? Maybe, just maybe, if someone hears my story, if someone hears who I am, then maybe they might be able to find a way through their pain, their hurt, because someone made it through on the other side and survived. There's a thing, thank you. Work has been really hard to find for me. Being trans, being released from prison. But I started working at the 6th Street Cafe, serving. And I met a guy named Derek, who is the store manager for Walgreens. He fought with corporate just so that I can have my job. He's grooming me to become a manager and work in the pharmacy, to be licensed. See, people, I can deal with person-to-person hate, transphobia. They're not the people that took 23 years of my life away. There's a thing called the justice system that starts at this very step. And it's people like that. There are labels that we put on people. Gay, straight, Christian, Muslim, whatever label or category that I'm a victim of putting people in, it's a way to separate us. It's a way to keep us divided. But if people saw that trans people are just people trying to live their lives, I'm not trying to be something I'm not. But for the first time in my life, I'm able to show you on the outside who I've always been on the inside. And you have no idea how much that means to me. My name is Shay. You can find me on Instagram, Shay Bennett 22. If you have any questions, if you want to talk, if you need someone to hear you, I'm there. Thank you for your time. And this is my book, Amazing Petunias. The petunias are doing amazing. We have a few copies here if you guys would like it. If you want to go to the website, amazingpetunias.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, honey.
So thank you all for listening to Shay's incredibly powerful and very deep story, because these are things that it is very hard for many of us in the trans community to talk about. And I cannot thank her enough for sharing her experiences with us. And now it is time for my speech. So, we are facing trans genocide. What does this mean? It means that people, specifically conservatives and fascists alike, are focusing on maximizing trans suffering and increasing trans suicide rates, while stirring up false fears and ideologies. The trans people are a threat to society. The same individuals have also been pushing for legislation that quite honestly kills trans people. They want us dead, and we're gonna have to fight like hell and struggle for our lives. The individuals leading the violence, genocide, and hateful rhetoric towards the transgender community are focusing on the very slim margins of the detransitioners in order to justify their scapegoating of the transgender community and society, in order to make it appear as if we are all just faking who we are in order for some sick ruse. Sorry, the wind's really hitting me. Individuals such as Tucker Carlson and Matt Walsh, another self-described theocratic fascist, are scapegoating the transgender community and causing our families to become indoctrinated into not accepting their own trans family members. This is what I mean when I say conservatives and fascists are maximizing trans suffering and suicide. Their words do cause harm, and we have proof. Trans youth that do not live in an accepting home environment are at least a 14 times greater risk of suicide due to parental rejection. If society began to value our lives, trans lives, we would see a significant reduction in suicidality. Studies have shown that parental acceptance drops trans suicide rates in adolescents from 57% to only 4%. Gender-affirming care and acceptance saves lives, unlike what these bigots may lead you to believe. Transphobic and hateful rhetoric is what causes our demise. Due to this rhetoric and transgenocidal propaganda, we have seen wide-sweeping anti-trans legislation introduced across the country in various states and nationally. And because of this, society at large is becoming more and more comfortable with anti-trans sentiments and genocide in general. In the state of Texas, parents of trans children are being investigated for allowing their children to identify as who they really are rather than what they were assigned at birth. So safe, affirming parents who decrease their children's suicidality are being investigated for child abuse in the state of Texas. That's a fucked up contradiction. And furthermore, on Matt Walsh, as I subsequently mentioned and previously mentioned, has targeted gender-affirming clinics for transgender youth, which have been targeted by conservatives and fascists and have been the target of death and bomb threats in the months since. Earlier this year, Walsh released a film titled What is a Woman?, which is nothing short of transphobic propaganda using misinformation and biased sources to discredit gender-affirming care, and in an attempt to make it appear as if it were medical torture and malpractice on children. These are literally the same tactics used in Nazi Germany by the Nazis to target, harass, and ultimately attempt to eradicate trans, gender diverse, and LGBT people. And this is exactly the type of rhetoric Walsh intends to spread on your local U of I campus at Champaign-Urbana on October 6th. It is deplorable. Supposedly the film is being presented by Young Americans for Freedom, which is a far-right fascist college student organization. And Walsh intends to show this film on at least 9 college campuses throughout the country. We are quite literally staring trans genocide in the face. Nothing is more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all.
Right.
Thank you. And then welcome Rachel to the mic, please. Sorry, that was a little... Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. I use she, her pronouns. I am the leader of the Resistor Sisterhood LGBTQ Task Force, as well as the president of the board for Coalescence Theater Project, which is a social justice theater in Bloomington. I'm here today as a cis queer ally to the transgender community. If you make the unfortunate mistake of reading the comments on any local news story regarding gender, you have undoubtedly seen people asking, why are we changing the way things have always been for a community that is less than 2% of the United States population? First of all, this statistic is hardly valid due to statistical methods, more acceptance of the trans community, and changing societal norms. Next, and perhaps most importantly, things should not have to affect you directly for you to care about other people. Right. Woo! And I feel like this should actually be my entire speech called It Shouldn't Have to Happen to You for It to Matter to You, but that doesn't fill my 5 minutes. But finally, we should care because anti-trans prejudice can affect each and every one of us. I will note that in this speech, I will usually refer to how bills target trans women, because protecting cis women from predators is a major selling point of most of these anti-trans bills. However, these bills make many women more vulnerable. In 2022, about 170 anti-trans laws have been proposed in various state legislatures across the country. This is up from about 21 such bills in 2015. These bills target everything from trans-affirming healthcare to trans youth's abilities to play sports. One of the most egregious examples of anti-trans actions, as you've heard, was Texas's attack on trans youth, allowing parents who were trans-affirming to be investigated for abuse. CPS, Child Protective Services, was sent to investigate parents for the crimes of accepting their children for who they are and providing gender-affirming care, which doesn't involve anything radical that young. It just involves allowing children to be who they are. If gender-affirming care is considered abuse, what could be next if you don't raise your child the way a state as fascist as Texas wishes? Do they not allow you to accept your gay kid? Do they force you to take your child to their church? Do they investigate parents whose kids may need treatment for anxiety or depression? Another particularly foul example comes from Ohio, where a bill was proposed to require confirmation of an athlete's gender if questioned. Basically, if someone thinks that a girl is trans, she is not able to compete in athletics until her gender is confirmed by a doctor through hormone levels, chromosome checks, or most likely an examination of her genitals. State-sponsored sexual abuse. Any competitor or parent mad about any sort of loss can accuse another athlete of not being female enough and trigger a required examination. Note, this rule is only expected to apply to female sports because those who write these laws are misogynistic enough to assume there's no way a trans man, who they would consider female, could compete with the guys. It's always directed at women. Allowing teenage girls to be humiliated in this way because of trans women might be able to play high school softball with other girls is a new low in a country that has seen a lot of lows recently. The trans bills that we see most often are what is called bathroom bills. Such bills require everyone to use the bathroom of their biological sex at birth. I'm not going to even touch on the issues of intersex and other issues that make sex a lot more murky concepts than we were taught in biology class. I'm not a biology teacher, we don't have time for that. But not even considering that, these bills empower people to question others' genders if they don't present as feminine or masculine enough. Many lesbians who are considered butch or masculine are being harassed in bathrooms because somebody thinks they might be trans. I don't know about you, but I have never felt unsafe sharing the bathroom with any woman. I generally don't check other people's genitals when they're in the bathroom with me.
Right.
But I have gotten side-eye. I am a cis woman, but I'm 5'10", so to some people, I don't look feminine enough. Every year, because I'm a nerd, I go to C2E2 in Chicago. All of the big multi-stall bathrooms have the signs covered up and they are all gender restrooms. If you end up as a person who is female or considers himself a woman in the bathroom that's traditionally men's bathroom with urinals, what do? You avert your eyes, you go to the bathroom, you adjust your costumes, you hopefully, please dear God, wash your hands.
Right, more importantly.
And you go back to the show floor. Never had a problem with everyone using the same bathroom. No one is scarred or otherwise harmed by sharing space in an inclusive manner unless they choose to be. Anti-trans laws have trans women in their sights, first of all. But make no mistakes, they'll target women like me who are not overtly feminine. They'll target women of color who are often classified as masculine by our racist beauty standards. These laws can and will be used to justify harassment of anyone that does not perform gender correctly, down to a level that would be best seen in 1950s sitcoms.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I would be miserable in Leave It to Beaver. This is why we must oppose any and all laws that target our trans siblings in this way. Trans people are the latest scapegoats in this crusade to justify bigotry under this banner of protecting women and children. The same arguments have been used for bigoted laws for hundreds of years. Protecting women was the purpose of half the Jim Crow laws. It was the purpose of the Holocaust. Everything is done to protect people who are probably doing just fine on their own. As the noted Antifa hero Luke Skywalker said, 1,000 generations live in you now, but this is your fight. If you've said that you would have fought Jim Crow, or if you would have fought the Holocaust, This is our fight now when our trans siblings are being targeted for genocide, and we must fight for all of us. Thank you.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, Max. Okay. Sorry.
Good morning, y'all. I am Maggie, and sorry, it got kind of mixed up here. Okay, so I am Maggie, as I just said. I am representing myself today as a 36-year-old trans woman, and also as a Panther. Okay. My official title is that I am the Deputy Spokesperson of Illinois for the Revolutionary Intercommunal White Panther Organization, which is under the Revolutionary Intercommunal Black Panther Party. Thank y'all for hanging with me through that mouthful that I just had to
All power
get
to
through.
the people.
All power to the people. Now, speaking of that, before I move on, we have some info over here for the Minister of Defense, whom is a political prisoner. His name is Kevin Rashid Johnson. Currently, they are essentially trying to murder this man with medical neglect. He has prostate cancer, and they're doing everything they can to delay his care. So we're asking that people help us out. We're doing calls, we're doing all kinds of things. One of the easy ways to find it is on any social media. Go look for the hashtag Defend Rashid. That's RASHID. Now, so my personal story, I grew up here in Springfield, Illinois all my life, all 36 years. And in that 36 years, I've seen a lot in regards to trans folks. I didn't know myself until I was about maybe 28 years old. I'm sure it's a common story for a lot of millennials, elder millennials my age, that are also trans, because we didn't know anything back then. I probably would have realized a lot sooner had we had the education we do now. The juxtaposition of that, unfortunately, is that now we are seeing the rise in the forces of reaction trying to basically tamp all of this down. And it's fairly sad because this wind is not our friend today. Yeah, that's right. Winds of change, and they cannot be stopped. It's all right. We're making our way through it regardless. Nothing's going to stop us.
That's right.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.
And all right, let me get my place back here. Okay. Where the heck was I? Yeah. All right. And so we've seen a common thread through the speakers here, talking about capitalism, talking about colonialism. Well, not directly, that word was not used, but it is exactly what people are talking about here today, because all of this is rooted in white supremacy, it's rooted in colonialism, it's rooted in capitalism. And the whole entire purpose of all of this is so that they can trap people with uteruses into doing domestic and reproductive labor and controlling that any way that they can. And transphobia is also rooted in this, because they don't know how to deal with us. We don't fit into their paradigms, right? And so with colonialism, you had all these different people all over the world, some of them with 10 different types of genders, you know. And so they forced this binary onto people into this way of living that they would just rather not have. And they use this system to basically trying to basically as a way to that really derailed my thought. Anyway, basically as a way to get whatever ends it is that they're trying to get. And so the whole entire thing that we have to do is any of these organizations, we have to get with it. We have to start organizing along some sort of revolutionary lines. We have to start building a new world against the forces of reaction that we have right now. We have to fight colonialism. We have to fight all the different ills of society and build a united front against fascism. And myself, I am also the lead organizer of the Panther Solidarity Organization, which is also under the RIBPP. I lead the collective here in Springfield. I also have some info on that, but if you want to find me and you just type in @PSOSPI into Facebook, we should pop up. Otherwise, we are at PSOSPI217@gmail.com. Now, I'm really off track. Okay, so basically, people here they've pretty much said it all, and like I said, get with all these people, especially support anything that Sam does. Resistor Sisterhood out here, Phoenix Center, you know, we got the Garvey Tubman Center, Shatriya, and thank y'all so much for coming. All power to the people.
All power to the people! Yep.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for having me here. I wanted to give a shout out to my church, the Abraham Lincoln Unitarian Universalist Church and First Presbyterian Church. Both my pastors are here today. We definitely stand in solidarity. I'm so pleased to have a church that supports us, that supports us breathing and being alive and wanting to be a part in the unity of a group. I am so glad to have you all here and to see your beautiful faces. I have books available. They are back here if you're interested. I have one more poem. I feel a little short today. Hold on. I have one more poem that I'd like to share with you. Again, this has no name, as it was just written recently. Thank you. Overt homophobia, overt transphobia, overt human phobia, overt feminine phobia, overt racist phobia. It's all a sickness. How dare you hate yourself enough to hate others? We are a related species, like brothers from a different mother, but you always from a mother that you forced to suffer, even when you say you love her. So destined to share the disingenuous and reckless views of intolerance, modernizing and advocating of ignorance, emancipated empathy, distorted sympathy, and pathologic inconsistencies like a full-blown commercial right on capitalist TV. You hate to be happy. Your biblical ideology is crappy. You pray and lie, you pilgrims of inadequacy. Your disdain for spiritual authenticity, your made-up version of fascist democracy, hypocrisy. How dare you have the audacity to spew your venom to the masses without taking off your vengeful glasses or thinking about all of our classes. Seniors, we are all on the same plantation. Capitalist prophets lead the mission. They use your spite of ridicule that is entirely minuscule, and it makes your ego and your ideology look really minimal. Take this spoonful of medicine as I feed it to you. I will add a bit of sugar, you sweet idiot. You are my brother. And while I don't always appreciate you, you are my brother. And sometimes families, we don't like one another. Thankfully, I don't have to like you to care for you the best of my ability. I will pray for you. This day is for you. Because I will be all of me authentically, no matter what you think of me, and I will support all of those who think just like me. Thank you.
You want me to introduce you?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much for your wonderful words. And our next and last speaker is Salem. You ready?
I don't have much of a choice at this point, do I? Hello, everyone. For those of you that don't know yet, my name is Salem King. I'm an activist here in Central Illinois and the founder of the Central Illinois United Front that seeks to unify leftist activists and organizations throughout our state to help protect our community at any cost. And today, when I heard about this event and I was asked to be a speaker, I wondered what it was that I needed to speak about, what it was that I could speak about in a unique way. What could I offer a unique perspective on? And I realized that since I've been doing this kind of activism since I was 13, the topic I wanted to discuss was complacency. The idea of activism that we've been propagandized to believe in, that doesn't actually achieve any real change. And in order to start off that speech, I would like to begin with the words of a trans 17-year-old from 2014. Please don't be sad. It's for the better. The life I would have lived isn't worth living because I'm transgender. I could go into detail explaining why I feel that way, but this note is probably going to be lengthy enough as it is. To put it simply, I feel like a girl trapped in a boy's body, and I felt that way ever since I was 4. I never knew there was a word for that feeling, nor was it possible for a boy to become a girl. So I never told anyone, and I just continued to do traditionally boyish things to try to fit in. When I was 14, I learned what transgender meant and cried of happiness. After 10 years of confusion, I finally understood who I was. I immediately told my mom, and she reacted extremely negatively, telling me that it was a phase, that I would never truly be a girl, that God doesn't make mistakes, that I'm wrong. If you're reading this, parents, please don't tell this to your kids. Even if you are Christian or against transgender people, don't ever say that to someone, especially your kid. That won't do anything but make them hate themselves. That's exactly what it did to me. My mom started taking me to a therapist, but would only take me to Christian therapists, who were all very biased. So I never actually got the therapy that I needed to cure me of my depression. I only got more Christians telling me that I was selfish and wrong and that I should look to God for help. When I was 16, I realized that my parents would never come around, and that I would have to wait until I was 18 to start any sort of transitioning treatment, which absolutely broke my heart. The longer you wait, the harder it is to transition. I felt hopeless, that I was just going to look like a man in drag for the rest of my life. On my 16th birthday, when I didn't receive a consent from my parents to start transitioning, I cried myself to sleep. I formed a sort of fuck you attitude towards my parents and came out as gay at school, thinking that maybe if I eased into coming out as trans, it would be less of a shock. Although the reaction from my friends was positive, my parents were pissed. They felt like I was attacking their image and that I was an embarrassment to them. They wanted me to be their perfect little straight Christian boy. And that's obviously not what I wanted. So they took me out of public school, took away my laptop and my phone, and forbid me from getting on any sort of social media, completely isolating me from my friends. This was the part of my life when I was the most depressed, and I'm surprised I didn't kill myself. I was completely alone for 5 months. No friends, no support, no love. Just my parents' disappointment and the cruelty of loneliness. At the end of the school year, my parents finally came around and gave me my phone and let me back on social media. I was excited. I finally had my friends back. They were extremely excited to see me and talk to me, but only at first. Eventually they realized they didn't actually give a shit about me, and I felt even lonelier than before. The only friends I thought I had only liked me because they saw me 5 times a week. After a summer of having almost no friends, plus the weight of having to think about college, save money for moving out, keep my grades up, go to church each week, and feeling like shit because everyone there is against everything I live for, I've decided I've had enough. I'm never going to transition successfully, even when I move out. I'm never going to be happy with the way I look or sound. I'm never going to have enough friends to satisfy me. I'm never going to have enough love to satisfy me. I'm never going to find a man who loves me. I'm never going to be happy. Either I live the rest of my life as a lonely man who wishes he were a woman, or I live my life as a lonelier woman who hates herself. There's no winning. There's no way it gets better. I'm sad enough already. I don't need my life to get any worse. People say it gets better, but that isn't true in my case. It gets worse. Each day I get worse. And that's the gist of it. That's why I feel like killing myself. Sorry if that's not a good enough reason for you. It's good enough for me. As for my will, I want 100% of the things that I legally own to be sold, and the money, plus my money in the bank, to be given to trans civil rights movements and support groups. I don't give a shit which one. The only way I will rest in peace is if one day transgender people aren't treated the way I was. They're treated like humans. Oh, I apologize, having a slight issue. Okay. There we go. Sorry. The only way I will rest in peace is if one day transgender people aren't treated the way that I was. They're treated like humans with valid feelings and human rights. Gender needs to be taught about in schools. The earlier the better. My death needs to mean something. My death needs to be counted in the number of transgender people who commit suicide this year. I want someone to look at that number and say, that's fucked up, and fix it. Fix society. Please. Goodbye. Leela Alcorn.
Thank you. That's fucked up. Let's fix it.
Sorry, it just... Now, if you're one of the unlucky bastards that's been on Tumblr and Wattpad for even longer than I have, you will probably recognize the Leia's suicide note from when it went viral back in 2014. And now, 8 years removed from her death, the community that she wanted so badly to protect is facing a full-fledged genocide. It started centuries ago when anyone who deviated from the Western gender norms of the European colonizers was deemed to be an other. Some separate group of animals that didn't deserve to be treated with the same dignity and respect as a regular person. Then, when society had finally progressed enough, that enough trans people had achieved the courage or comfortability to come out as their true selves, fuckers like Mike Huckabee or other various right-wing bigots decided to project their own sexual immorality onto us. Lamenting all the sexual assaults they would have committed as a teenager, if only they were allowed to enter the girls' locker room, and that this was somehow the fault of trans people. Then using the propagandistic and vindictive version of the trans people that existed in their head to justify bathroom bills that would force trans people into spaces where they could be and have been violently assaulted. Despite this still not being more than a handful of accounts of anything even slightly inappropriate being done by trans people who were just trying to take a shit. Then, once their, let's call them, best efforts failed, and we continue to exist nonetheless, they moved on to dehumanization, saying that children are being groomed merely by the fact that they occasionally exist in the same room as an AMAB person wearing a dress or a skirt. Or if a female teacher has the audacity to mention that she has a wife to her students. But the grooming that takes place in the Catholic and Baptist Church is clearly just the fault of homosexual infiltration. And now that their language is starting to take off, the TERFs and the fascists, but I repeat myself, are joining together to create openly genocidal institutions like the LGB Alliance, Libs of TikTok, Illinois Family Institute, or the Republican Party. So now what? It's very clear that this current backlash against the civil rights of trans people is only getting more and more severe. Even as more and more people are coming to understand and accept the trans community. Even as more people are willing to use they, them pronouns and able to do so. Even as more people have a close friend or family member who is a member of the trans community. Hell, I even hear there's a gay couple on Peppa Pig now. Culturally speaking, things have actually been on an upward trend for the queer community. And that is exactly why they are ramping up their genocidal rhetoric. Because our very existence threatens their patriarchal and genocidal Western hegemony. And in order for their theocracy to take hold, we must be jammed back into the closet. To demonstrate this phenomenon, I would actually like to use one of Obama's favorite quotes. The moral arc of the universe is long, but it always bends towards justice. And if that isn't just the very height of liberal fantasy. The improvements we've seen in social justice over the course of the last century have not been from natural occurrence. The reason that the moral arc of the universe has begun to bend towards justice is because the rioters at Stonewall, the Black Panthers, the Nazi-killing Soviets, the Freedom Riders, and countless other anti-fascists were willing to shed their own blood to grab that son of a bitch and bend it manually.
Yes!
The only reason we've made any progress at all is because our predecessors were willing to face down lynchings, fascist cops, bomb threats, hate crimes, and prison time if it meant justice. So what right do we have to do any different? You wonder why it is that you continuously march around with your signs and chants while making sure to vote blue no matter who, yet nothing fucking changes. And that is the difference between a genuine anti-fascist and a fake one. A true anti-fascist will look at the sept, the tactics of the past, whereas a privileged liberal, pretending to be an anti-fascist, will always refuse to sink to the level of those common criminals, rioters and looters, disruptive freeloaders, and overly emotional queers. A pretender fights like it is a test of morality, a test to see if you are a good enough person to help your socioeconomic lesser. But a true advocate, a true warrior for justice fights like their life depends on it. Because in case you hadn't noticed, regardless of your race, gender, or preferred pelvic structure, you are going to spend the rest of your life slaving away to make money for someone you're never gonna meet, while that same bastard raises the prices and forces you to choose between paying rent and groceries, because either way the money is going to somebody the fuck else. Now imagine dealing with that wage slavery along with the effects of transphobia, homophobia, racism. Imagine what it is like to be under the constant stress that comes with class oppression, and then finally gathering up the energy to go to a protest or a pride parade and spending the entire ordeal being disempowered. Being told that your pain or your strategic knowledge doesn't matter because you said fuck one too many times. Being surrounded by the same police department who pointed a fucking gun at me when I was walking home from work at 2 in the morning because I looked suspicious. Imagine watching as everything your community has worked for decades slips away because privileged suburbanites thought that they were more knowledgeable in how to protest because they listened to MLK's I Have a Dream once in middle school. And you see that tone policing, that urge to keep things professional, that urge, that expectation that a white man in a suit is more trustworthy than a long-haired twink who very clearly is still in their middle school emo phase. That is why the work of modern progressives doesn't work. You see, I'm not here because I want to be. I have been fighting for the last 6 years just so that I could show my corporate daddies what a good and upstanding citizen I was. I did it because I was sick and tired of watching my friends die. So please, help us. Stop hiding behind your privilege and your excuses and fight like all of our lives fucking depend on it. Because make no mistake, these fucking cunts are trying to legislate trans people out of existence. And that, my friends, is the very definition of a genocide. The politicians, the corporations, the Daily Wire, they don't care about us. They don't care about me. They don't care about you. They are more than willing to use both economic and physical violence to keep all of us in line. So please, join us. Fight like hell. Let us all abandon the patriarchal standards of our oppressors and fight back, because I refuse to go back into the closet. I refuse to spend the rest of my life working for yet another white guy in a suit. I will live free, and I will do whatever is necessary to make sure that the lives of the next generation are going to be better than mine.
Yes! Yes!
And for all of our sakes, I hope that each and every one of you can say the same.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
That was powerful.
That concludes our speaker portion. If any trans folks would like to come up and share their stories at the mic, you are more than welcome. This is an open atmosphere and welcoming. I am not going to censor you because our stories have been censored for way too fucking long, and your lives fucking matter. And it's about damn time the rest of the world starts treating it like it. And I want to tell every one of you that you are valid and you are loved. And fuck these fascists that want to kill us. Also, there is an Narcan table over here. Again, I just want to remind y'all. So, Narcan does save lives. Harm reduction saves lives. If you know anybody that can use it, or if you can use it, or if you just happen to be a person that just likes to, go for an afternoon stroll and you happen to see people on the street every once in a while, you may be able to save a life by carrying Narcan with you. So please consider grabbing some Narcan and saving a life. Thank you.